I want to welcome everyone this evening, but I especially want to welcome Tom Milligan and Mark Miner from the Office of External Affairs at CSU. And I think they're over there in the corner. So a big thank you. More than anything, I want to reinforce that CSU and Rocky Mountain PBS have had a long partnership in education, and we're proud, both of us, to be enriching the lives of Colorado. We're very appreciative of this opportunity. Once again, a collaboration that we did last year and was completely sold out, and to work again with CSU and their esteemed faculty and staff. Some of our past events have included the screening of My Life as a Turkey on the CSU campus with nature producer Fred Kaufman, and bringing together nature lovers and community members and students alike. We also did a special event with Temple Grandin last year. There was such a high demand to hear Dr. Grandin speak that we are delighted and grateful to have her here again with us this evening. We're proud to announce that tonight's event has raised over $2,935 for Dr. Temple Grandin's scholarship in animal behavior and welfare. And now it is my great pleasure to welcome Jeannie Ritter, our former First Lady, a board member of Rocky Mountain PBS, and a key member to our Women and Girls Lead Advisory Council. I bring you Jeannie Ritter.
Thank you, Patty. And I echo the welcome for everyone here tonight. I do have a quick confession to make. I've been parading around for the last couple months saying that I was going to introduce Temple Grandin. And I just didn't get the same response that when I told people I was introducing Kevin Pond. So in a moment, I'll introduce Professor Pond, Dr. Pond. But I do get a gush for a few minutes about Temple Grandin. And the turnout tonight really speaks to the great contribution that she has made. I can speak as a 10-year public school teacher. The gift you gave us in helping us to unwrap the whole issue around autism, and how you've been able to support families and educators across our nation. That's been amazing. Your work in animal welfare and agricultural industries is really has really changed the game, of course, as we'll hear more about, in how these areas have been looked at. The unique spectacles with which you have given us, again, in that area. But first, I want to thank Temple Grandin because her leadership in this area, being a woman, entering an area that was not so occupied by females at that time. And so that's where we come in terms of Women and Girls Lead, and the initiative that we're so excited about here at Rocky Mountain PBS, to really take opportunities to take leadership and unique women who have established roles that help open up opportunities for young girls in our state and across our nation. So really happy to have you here with us tonight. And Dr. Pond, I said to him out here in the hallway, I think I have an amazing bookend to my day. This guy has just come down from Wyoming. I said, You came down? Yeah, he said, we had a bull sale up there today. So he starts his day with a bull sale in Wyoming, and we're so pleased to have you. Also, the head of, Kevin is the head of animal sciences at CSU, and it's great that you can be a great support to this conversation here tonight. Thanks so much. Welcome, everybody.
It is a pleasure to be here. That was no bull. I really was at a bull sale in Saratoga, and I had misread my calendar. And I thought this started at 6:30, and I realized on my way up there that it started earlier, and Temple and I were communicating back and forth. We were going to ride together, and it turned out she'd put it wrong on her calendar too, so she did get here before I did. But I do have a suit in the car. but I decided no. I think I'll wear what Temple will be most easy with me wearing. It is a pleasure to be Temple's boss. Now, Temple doesn't take much direction. She does provide lots of advice, and I think that is fabulous about her. She has made a huge impact in the animal agriculture world and in the autism world. And I think one thing that if you look at all the famous people that every university would have, lots of people, all universities have one or two that they'll kind of put on a pedestal and say, you know, in astrophysics, this is the best person, or in biochemistry, this is the absolute best person, or we have a Nobel Prize winner and such. Temple's been outstanding in a number of fields. So she's not only known just because she's a tremendous animal behaviorist, she's not only known because she's a good engineer of animal handling facilities, but she's also known as an expert in overcoming autism, in directing people that are challenged with those types of kids. And I think that's really amazing when you look at the broad spectrum as being an author of public knowledge and information that will help people, of books that are fun to read across a large range of people and interest. I don't think there's another individual anywhere that has as broad and as deep a background as Temple does and has had as large of an impact. The other thing I want to mention about Temple is that she is completely unselfish. I want to make a couple other comments about Temple before we have the screening. One thing I think is really, really interesting is I get the opportunity to do the annual evaluation of all the faculty that are in animal sciences. I have the greatest joy of doing Temple's. She doesn't follow the rules. It's not in the proper form. And she'll come in with a list, and I'll say, well, what's this list? And she said, well, those are the events I went to. She says, this is the list for animal type events, and this is the list for autism type events. All over the country and around the world, and there's like 40 or 50 on each of those lists of events. I said, is this for the last 5 years? No, that's the last 365 days. And then you look at another list, and it has a whole list of awards. And I'm going, man, this is quite a career she's had. Well, guess what? Those were the awards for the last year. She has more honorary doctoral degrees, I think, than any person I know, and has many more that she's going to. And in fact, one of my good friends that's at Texas A&M said, we're very excited to be honoring Temple. But we couldn't get her schedule conflicted with all our graduation dates, so we're not going to be giving it to her for another year. But she's going to be getting one of those as well. So I think the one thing that's great about Temple is she is very open. We're going to have a great time with the discussion, question, answer session. So be thinking of questions you want to ask. Those are going to be handed to some individual, and then they'll bring them to me, and then Temple. I'll ask Temple the question, and she'll have a great opportunity to have fun with those questions and answer them, and she will spend as much time as needed. So I think without further ado, we all came to see the film. Let's see it. Temple, why don't you come up and join?
Okay.
Okay, I have some of the questions that have been written, so I'll go through those and ask. If you have others, please get them to Mark, and he'll get them up here. That's a simple one to begin with, I think.
Okay.
How does it feel knowing that you are an inspiration to so many people?
Well, I try to answer all the cards and letters and emails I get, especially from little kids. Answer those first. Because I can remember when I was young, I remember writing to a big company, and the guy actually wrote back to me, and that really meant a lot to me. And sometimes I get asked about, how I like all this attention on people come up to me at the airport and things like that. Well, I consider it a responsibility. No more slouchy dress at the airport.
What kept you going when things were really tough early in your career?
Well, one of the things that kept me going is there were some good people that helped me. You know, there was Jim, the contractor, that I worked with on building things. There was my aunt. There was some good people in ranching. There was Ted Gilbert at the Red River Feed Yard, Gary Oden at the McElhaney Feed Yard. There were some good people, and that kept me going. That was sort of like seeing light at the end of the tunnel. You know, that wasn't a train at the end of the tunnel coming at me. There actually was some light at the end of the tunnel, and that's what kept me going. I think another thing that helped me is I was taught work skills. And this is the thing I'm seeing a very big problem today. Let me just go through my work experiences. When I was 13, Mother got me a little sewing job. I did 2 afternoons a week, a little lady that freelanced sewing out of her house, and I'd hem dresses and I'd take apart garments. And then when I was 15, after I got kicked out of high school for throwing a book at a girl who teased me, I went to special boarding school. Mr. Patey, the headmaster, kind of had good sense on, I didn't do much studying the first 2 years, but boy, I cleaned a lot of horse stalls. And I think he realized that what I was doing then was learning work skills. Then when I was 15, the opportunity came up to go to my aunt's ranch. Mother got remarried, which brought the ranch into the family, and I was afraid to go. You see, and this is where Mother had a really good sense of how much to stretch me. She knew just how much to stretch me. You know, she had me serving hors d'oeuvres at her parties when I was very, very young, learning how to shop, a lot of these kinds of things. And she gave me a choice of going to the ranch for a week or going all summer. She wasn't going to let me not go. And then when I was at school, I was doing a lot of sign painting and things and making things and selling them. When I went to college, they set up some internships for me. One time I worked at a research lab and I had to rent my own house with another lady. Now, all of this happened before I graduated from college, because I'm seeing some people graduating from college that they don't get the discipline of work. They'll get a job, but then they might think part of the job's boring. Yes, there's things that are boring about having a business. Yeah, doing tax returns. There's a lot of stuff that's boring. You know, going through airport security is not fun. You know, there's a lot of things that you got to do in a job that you just have to do, and there's a kind of discipline of work. And in that book over there, Different Not Less, I did that book because I wanted to show where are the old people that got labeled Asperger's. And those are people that got diagnosed later in life because they had relationship issues. And getting the diagnosis really helped on the relationship issues. But they already were settled into their jobs. And they had paper routes when they were 12. They had learned how to work. And I'm seeing too many smart kids becoming video game recluses in the basement, and then they can get Social Security check. See, another problem you have in autism is at one end of the spectrum you got a Steve Jobs and an Einstein. The other end of the spectrum you've got somebody that's much more handicapped and is going to need that Social Security check. But I'm really getting concerned about what's happening with a lot of these kids that are a lot less severe than what I was. You got to stretch them. No surprise, you got to stretch them, and they're not getting stretched enough. And job training needs to start at 12, and you know it'd be a great thing around here with all the leash laws, dog walking. There's no more paper routes anymore, but they can walk dogs. I just got back from Ireland yesterday, and they were saying shopping for old folks. Let's just figure out things in the community that you can do. Of course, there's always snow shoveling and lawns, but that's seasonal. I want to have a job where it's not quite so seasonal. How about working in a computer store? Museums will take them as young as 12 to be museum tour guides. At 16, you can go to the animal shelter and work with the pets. But I'd like to get them working even younger than that, because you've got to learn that discipline of work. And that's one of the things that really helped me to be successful. Sorry to go on so long about that, but that is my new soapbox right now, because I'm getting
and you're on a box.
Really concerned about it.
We have a question from one of our younger members in the audience, age 10. Do you think your autism helped influence your bond with animals? Yes,
because I'm an extreme visual thinker. So when I started my first work with cattle, the obvious thing to me was to get down and shoot and see what cattle were seeing. And when I first started doing that, people thought that was really crazy. I didn't know that other people didn't think in pictures. I thought everybody thought in pictures the way I did. And it wasn't until I got into my 40s that I learned the full extent of how my thinking was different. That's why in my new book, The Autistic Brain, that'll come out at the end of April, really getting into the different kinds of minds thing. Because I can understand if you think in words, you wouldn't think about what cattle were seeing. You see, I'm a sensory-based thinker, and that helped me in my work with animals.
Great. What is the best way for me to reach out to autistic people that I meet?
Well, I'm going to have to make it a little more specific. Are we talking kids here, adults? Are you talking about them in the workplace, your teacher in the school? That's almost too general a question. Maybe if I wrote that question, you could, maybe make it a little more specific. Adult. Okay, this being a social situation or a work situation? Relatives? Okay, so they're coming into like Christmas party and the whole family's together. Well, people on autism have a hard time with just sort of idle social chit-chat. I actually find that very boring. Now, if I can find somebody else at the party that's an engineer or a doctor, and we can just talk about technical stuff, even technical stuff in another field, I find that really interesting. And this is why I think it's so important, like when kids are in high school and they're getting teased and bullied, they get in with shared interests, the computer club, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H and FFA. I was really big in 4-H. We didn't have FFA in my school. But those kind of activities can be just great. Band, school play, school newspaper. Get involved in these things. Because the only places where I was not teased when I was in high school was the special interest things. Horseback riding, model rockets, and electronics. The kids who were interested in those things did not do the teasing. Got to get kids into those things. And I've had parents sometimes kind of worried about stretching their kid. I had a parent one day that, she was afraid to sign her daughter up for 4-H rabbits. And I said, you're going to have bunnies in your backyard. Get over it. Sign her up. And these, for 4-H, things like chicken projects, rabbit projects are really good because chickens in most suburbs you can do 5 hens. That's a great thing. They can get a shared interest and they can get recognition for doing a good job at it.
Here's a personal one. What do you do for fun?
Well, I go to movies occasionally. I was on a plane. I got to watch Argo. That was a really great movie. That was kind of fun. But I don't know. So I would go to a movie once in a while. Once saw Life of Pi, Avatar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all the work you do is fun.
Well, I was really happy. I thought lab went really well this month. We split them up into groups and had one group learning how to move the cattle in the chute, and another group did flights on, another group worked on drawings, and that went really well. And I see the kids learning. That turns me on.
Next question. Is it difficult to diagnose autism correctly?
The problem is autism is a behavioral profile. And over the last 30 years, they keep changing the behavioral profile. And they're going to take out Asperger's, which is mild autism, and make it social communication disorder. And that's to cut back on services. That's why they're doing that. And it's not precise. Basically, in a little kid, it's pretty easy to diagnose. If you got a 3-year-old and the speech is delayed, and they have a lot of repetitive behavior, and they are not interested in socializing, that's autism. And don't wait, you better do something about it. You see, then when the kids get older, they kind of split into 2 groups. You got the kind of more Asperger kid where they're fully verbal, but not very social. And they got to learn social like being coached in a play. This is why you got to get them out. We go out to a restaurant, and they forgot to say please, and then you got to cue them and say, well, you forgot to say please to the waiter. I'm seeing too many kids that don't know how to shake hands. They don't know how to order food. They don't know how to shop. Just these basic things. I knew how to do all that stuff by the time I was 8 and 9 years old. I was doing that stuff. And the day that I laid down and rolled around on the floor of the post office, Dino, the guy who ran the post office, told my mother, it takes a village to raise a child. That wasn't the right thing to do in the post office.
My 6-year-old son was recently diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. When should I and my husband talk to our son about his diagnosis? How much should we tell him?
Well, a good book for kids to read is that Temple Grandin by Cy Montgomery. It's back there, and that's written a little higher level than 6-year-old. That'd be 5th and 6th grade to read that book, and it tells about my life. It also tells other famous people like Einstein probably had some autism. And, the thing I wonder today, little Albert, no speech until age 3. Where would little Albert go in today's school system? That really concerns me. Now the thing you got to look is how well is your kid getting along in school? Let's get him involved with the shared interests. Take the things he's good at and build on it. Now he's 6, he's still pretty young. My ability in art didn't show up until a couple of years later. But my ability in art was always encouraged because that became the basis of my career, which is basically industrial design. Industrial designers do the visual part, like Steve Jobs was an industrial designer. The engineers do the innards for the phone. You see, you need both kinds of minds working on projects. You know who lays out these big plants, like Greeley and Fort Morgan? It's the draftsman. Lays the whole entire plant out. Then the engineers have to figure out how to make some of the stuff work. And do all the mathematics, because draftsmen can't do the math. Visual thinkers like me, terrible at math. So you need both kinds of minds. Because the reason why the Fukushima nuclear power plant blew up is they didn't have a visual thinker as a safety manager, and they put the generators that run the emergency cooling pumps in a non-waterproof basement. Like they don't run underwater. And they just didn't see it. They literally didn't see it. The mathematics mind doesn't see it.
This is a great one because I really appreciate your mother, and this is about your mom. What do you suppose gave your mom the courage not to give up on you?
First of all, she did get some very good early advice. When I was 2.5 years old, I didn't go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I went to a neurologist, and she tested me for epilepsy and found out I did not have that. I wasn't deaf, and referred me to a really good little speech therapy school. The 2 teachers ran out of the basement of their house. No, seriously, that's what it was. There was some Down syndrome kids in that, and she did a lot of the applied behavior analysis stuff similar to what's done today. It was called Miss Reynolds' Talking School back then. And then she could see that I was improving. But it was very lucky that she did get that very first good advice. You see, and then autism didn't even come up at that point. You see, you got to remember, this was 1949 that I would have gone in. And even though Cantor had done his papers like in 43, most doctors didn't know about it. You see, and the autism stuff came up later. And then she could see that I was improving. Now, if we'd gone to the wrong doctor in the beginning, I would have probably gone to the State Mental Hospital in Grafton, Massachusetts, which is now the campus of the Tufts Veterinary College. And if you walk down this road, you find these old creepy falling down, crumbling up buildings. And I just got the heebie-jeebies when I went down there because that's where I would have been.
Thanks to your mom.
No, she kept me. And she had a really good sense of just how hard to push me. No surprises, but, always taking me places, doing things, and learning just the basic things. Shaking hands, greeting, saying please and thank you. We'd go out to a nice restaurant. I knew how to order food. This stuff was taught young. And I'm seeing today, people are not teaching us basic stuff.
Which of your many accomplishments are you most proud of?
Well, I have different things that I'm most proud of, like best drawing, and then I have other categories like some of my equipment things. I developed this piece of equipment called the center track restrainer system. Half of all the cattle in this country are handled in that I developed for the big meatpacking plants. Greeley's got one, Fort Morgan's got one. That was a real accomplishment. That was not easy to do. One of the things I learned is that selling people the thing was a lot easier than getting them to manage it properly. Then my third thing I'm really proud of is the auditing program that I developed that's used to measure the handling at the plants, because that forced people to operate my equipment properly.
This is a note for you and a question. Temple, thanks for all you do for individuals with disabilities. How can we as a community help young adults with disabilities find fulfilling work when schools are having trouble graduating these students? And also, what advice would you give to young adults who are feeling hopeless?
All right, let's look at it. This one thing, math is a major area. Well, you know what? Texas is doing something really interesting. I was just in Texas less than 2 weeks ago. And I've been doing a lot of talks at community colleges. Boy, I can tell you, that's where they're doing some good stuff. And where some of these kids can get turned around. They decided, okay, you're going to have one kind of student who's going to go the STEM route, science, technology, engineering, and math. And another kind of student go the statistics route. That's actually the way I went. And then you're going to have students who are going to do the 2-year degree, where they just have to learn the elementary school math like a vet tech. You're going to have to learn enough math to dose medicines. I had no problems with that stuff. It was when I got hit algebra. That was a big roadblock. And the thing is, we've got to look at what the person is good at. We need to be looking a lot more at the informal economy, the backdoor things. Like the local computer shop takes the guy in and is willing to work with them and work with his social skills. And say, explain to him what he did wrong. Okay, you got in that customer's face too much. Let me demonstrate what you did to that customer. Now I'm going to demonstrate, I'm going to pretend I'm the customer, this is how you do it. You've got to just teach them. We need to be working on these informal things. Finding, there's all kinds of things they can do in the community. We got to find out what's the person's area of strength. Like one time I met a lady that did the most beautiful pictures of pets. And she was working in a call center and hated it. I said, you know what? You can sell those for $400 a pop, pictures of people's pets. She had no idea of what she had. My thing that I was good at was the art and design. Now the thing is, I didn't do cattle handling stuff overnight. Back in the 70s, I spent 3 years going to every feed yard in Arizona, working cattle. That's how I learned it. We got to get more flexible on finding the informal things just in the town. Let's work with a lot of independent businesses. There's a lot of things, a lot of different things. We've got to just do it in the community. I think that's where things are really going to work, because I'm seeing some of these people get into like you get different vendors that run like a vocational training, and they sort of get on a disability treadmill where it's just not a good thing. Find something the person is good at. Find someone that someone's willing to work with them. And there were people that recognized my abilities. And if you have a fancy portfolio you can show off, like drawings or computer programming, there's fabulous stuff online. Like if the kid's a math head, you can take free programming classes from Stanford for free on Udacity. There's all kinds of resources out there on the internet, provided you got a decent internet connection. There's all kinds of, we got to get creative. And one thing I learned very early on is that sometimes you're going to meet the person that can just open the door. And the problem is people aren't seeing the door. You don't know. You might be sitting next to somebody on a plane, and if your student's good at math or good at art, you better have his stuff on your phone. So you've got it there to show.
Great. Another really good question, I think. What motivates you to do all the presentations, teaching, working, etc.? And how do you have all the energy to do so much?
Well, I do make sure I get enough sleep. When people want to say, oh, here's a $100 red eye, that leaves at midnight and it gets in at 5, I say, forget it. That is, and they want to take the plane that makes 2 connections, forget it. I'm not going to do that. All my first class trips have been upgrades. 2 million miles on United, and I say I'm going to have to spend them. I just spent them on this trip to Ireland, a whole piles of miles. I like the results of these things. I like the things that I do. Hopefully you're going to help, make the world a better place.
This one indicates, I've read all your books and your mother's books. As a mother of a severely autistic daughter, what advice can you give me?
Well, first of all, I don't have enough information there to give you advice. Obviously, if somebody is really nonverbal, maybe going to CSU would not be a reasonable option. The first thing I got to do is look at, we want to stretch, but what is a sensible option? Okay, like this is where, now I can't remember her name. I'm terrible about names. You can see her there. Oh, they had the son there, he had the light blue shirt on in the movie. And this kid was really severe, violent and everything else. And they worked with him, and now they can take him out and they can go to restaurants with him. No, he's not going to go to college. But he can do normal things with the family that he couldn't do before. You kind of have to, then you've got some of the sensory issues. But the thing is, people with autism keep growing. Like Mother said that I'm getting less autistic in the last 10 years. You keep growing as I add more information to my database because I'm a bottom-up thinker. And everything's learned by specific example. So as I add more and more and more information to my database, I can get better and better at how I'm acting. Like my first talk I ever did, I panicked and walked out. And I'm seeing, we got to make accommodations that are going to help, like in the workplace, like a quiet place to work, maybe away from fluorescent lights, and get away from multitasking. But on the other hand, we got to be doing things that enable people. So let's say you have a shy, geeky kid who's too scared to do his public speaking in class, and they go, well, let him do it on Skype. I'm going, Going to have to do it in the class. And he better have really good slides, so if he panics, then he can read his slides. It's not the end of the world.
This question comes from a teacher. What can a teacher do to make the life of a student with autism better?
Okay, first of all, what's the age of this kid?
Elementary, sorry.
Elementary school. First thing we got to be careful about is sensory issues. There are some kids that when the fire alarm goes off, that really hurts their ears. School bell goes off, hurts their ears. Buzzer, the scoreboard. Might be some kids may need to get away from some of this stuff. There are some that have got to get away from fluorescent lights. There's a lot that can tolerate them. Autism, real variable. We got to make sure, look into sensory problems. And the other thing is, slow down when you're talking. Some of these kids have trouble screening out background noise. Kind of a chaotic classroom and a lot of activity they might not, do well in. Build on the strengths. And if the child's in 3rd grade and he can do a 6th grade math book, let him have a 6th grade math book. Don't bore him with the baby math book. But that kid's going to need tutoring and reading. That's the way the pattern. Uneven skills. Build on the strength. Yeah, we're going to have to do something to get the reading better. But we don't want to make him do baby math over and over again to the point where he's bored. But being aware of the sensory issues. In my book, The Way I See It, I discuss sensory issues. And those are really real things. And I think sometimes it's hard for people to, that something doesn't bother you, bothers the kid. Okay, I think that.
Question for you. What's next for Temple? I want to know this too. So, what's next for Temple? And do you still have goals after accomplishing so much in your life already?
Well, I plan to keep on doing presentations and teaching my class. That's one of the things I plan on doing.
I'm glad to hear that.
Okay.
We're going to get a bigger room because we can only put as many students as the seating chart holds. So guess what? Your class size is going to get bigger.
Okay. Well, I see that finally got.
She listened. That's great.
Yeah, but I've got class due tomorrow, and then I got to rush over to the vet school, and I've got to do the vet school version of it too tomorrow.
I'm going to tell Temple one thing that I think she's completely unaware of. Everyone in here is here by choice. And for those that are sports fan, and Temple could care less about sports.
Yeah, I really do.
Tonight is the Final Four, the last game basketball championship. Now, if it had
which
been,
I could care less about because I could tell. I showed the Poudre Valley High School today. I showed the new horse center they're working on raising money for, and I said it doesn't cost anywhere near as much as the football stadium, and it's a lot more important.
But the point I want to make is everybody's here and made a choice of doing that, including me.
Yeah, good.
So you're teaching me. Now, if CSU had been in it, we'd have been showing it on the big screen here prior to your movie. But
okay.
I've got a couple more comments, and one of them Temple just brought up because we're out of questions. If there's questions that didn't make it over here, we'll be glad to take one or more. I want a couple more, but one thing Temple did talk about is, and I thought she might even say it, is what's next. One of the things, if you look at Temple's life, that really had a huge impact on her were animals, and particularly horses.
Yeah,
and you may want to talk about the new center that plans are made, and we're in the silent phase. So I really didn't tell you. We're in the silent phase of fundraising for the Temple Grandin Center. Tell them a little bit about it.
It'll be for therapeutic riding, and there'll also be a new program at CSU. And I think this would be the really worthwhile thing. And I think it's a more worthwhile thing than the new stadium would be, if you really want my opinion. And it's a lot less expensive.
Temple will be happy to sign books in the back there. Temple, you were asked lots of questions. Is there something that you want to tell people? Not a full 50-minute lecture.
No, I think I've kind of covered some of the things. I mean, basically, it's develop the kids' strengths, work on strengths. The concept of stretching them. Mother wasn't going to let me not go to the ranch. It was 1 week or all summer. She gave me a choice, but not going wasn't going to be one of those. I've talked to other parents. Well, my kid was afraid to go to sleepaway camp, and then he went and he loved it. But then no surprises. I knew about that trip way in advance. And the other thing is working on the job skill thing, and that needs to start at around 12. But I also want to emphasize it's not too late to start. You know, if your kid's 18, 20 years old, it's never too late to start. A person with autism can always keep growing. That's kind of like a little summary.
Join me in giving Temple a hand.